He's done. After 3 terms in office, an Emmy, a $5 million book deal with a reported $18 million in the bank, and only 1 year after he was lauded as the future of the Democratic Party, Andrew Cuomo's out as the New York governor and one of the most powerful politicians in America. Good. He resigned yesterday in a stunning turn of fortune after he realized he was out of options. The president had turned on him. The centrist New York Democrats who had been backing him turned on him. The Speaker of the Assembly made clear that the impeachment trial of Mr. Cuomo for the alleged serial sexual harassment and abuse of women would go forward in weeks, not months. And the calculating politician did the math. There was no way forward. Instead of letting the guillotine drop, he swung the axe himself and ended his political career, at least for now. How on earth did we get here? I'll tell you how. In the spring of 2020, Andrew Cuomo's star rose rapidly as he dazzled the media with his measured COVID press conferences, sounding every bit the avuncular voice of reason. The man in control of the uncontrollable. The perfect contrast to shoot from the hip Trump, whose public health messaging was all over the board and often erratic. Cuomo's sexual t-shirts were bought and worn by grown men, enamored with Cuomo's Jed Bartlett-esque tell-it-like-it-is style. He'll save us from this pandemic, people thought. There was even talk of replacing Biden on the Democratic ticket with him. And then a gal from Canada, married to a New York City hero 9/11 firefighter and living a simple life on Long Island, New York, raising their 2 young sons together. She was fighting a medical battle of her own, by the way, MS, and doing the weather for Fox News, got mad. Janice Dean. You see, both of her in-laws, her husband Sean's parents, Dee and Mickey, who I also had the pleasure of meeting over the years, died in New York nursing homes, not long after Sean and Janice reluctantly made the decision to admit them. They died shortly after an order issued by Governor Big Man on campus that sent COVID-positive patients into New York nursing homes where the sickest, most vulnerable populations lived. Medical groups had begged Governor Cuomo not to do it, warning him the death toll would be devastating. But Cuomo, as always, knew better. The death toll mounted by the thousands. Dee and Mickey were 2 of them. 2, it would turn out, of some 15,000 seniors who died in New York nursing homes. And the weather gal from Fox News decided to speak out about it, since the fawning liberal media has zero desire to attack their boyfriend-in-chief. She spoke out about this on Fox News, on this show, and anywhere that would have her. Notably not on the list, The View, among others, which had hosted JD before, but for some reason found this story totally uninteresting. She tweeted multiple times a day. She watched every press conference of his. She informed us all of his inconsistencies. She called out his lies on the number of dead, on his callousness about the death toll. People die. It happens. His deflection of blame to God, to the nurses, to anyone not named Cuomo. She had allies in men like Ron Kim, Democrat from New York, whose relative, his uncle, also died in a New York nursing home. He later admitted that his own speaking out led to vicious bullying from Cuomo personally. But those allies were few and far between. People like Soledad O'Brien, Matthew Dowd, then of ABC News, attacked Janice. She was diminished by so many as just the weather gal. Even the governor's top aide attacked her as, quote, not an expert in anything but the weather. She wouldn't stop. She was like a dog with a bone. Even Sean, a very private man and good friend of mine, eventually asked her, honey, when are you going to stop this? Never was the answer, because it's not how she's built. She couldn't, because no one else would talk about it. Sure, Fox News, right, and some conservative media. But ABC, NBC, CBS, please. CNN? Well, CNN went a different way entirely, lionizing Andrew Cuomo on his brother's show in the middle of all of this, joking night after night about who mom loved best, humanizing Andrew, trying to make us all love him. No hard questions, just a celebration of his alleged brilliance and leadership. The Cuomo brothers, raised in enormous privilege, afforded it yet again on a national stage in a gross dereliction of journalistic duty that CNN will never live down. After long last, the Attorney General of New York finally got involved, took a look at the nursing home numbers, and confirmed everything Janice had been saying, that Cuomo had lied, that he had been undercounting the deaths to protect himself politically. His top aide even admitted it privately to top Democrats. Still, the press and New York Democrats had little interest in the story. And then came a woman named Lindsay Boylan in December 2020 with the tweet that would mark the final chapter of Cuomo. Lindsay Boylan, who worked in the governor's office for a period of time as a young, fresh-faced aide, revealed that she had been sexually harassed by him, that he had kissed her on the lips against her will, asked her to play strip poker with him, been told by her boss that Cuomo, quote, had a crush on her. And not long after that, in 2018, Boylan then left Cuomo's office. Boylan was attacked, smeared, diminished, called a liar by Cuomo and his henchmen and women, but she never wavered. And we now know that behind the scenes, the governor was getting help smearing Lindsay Boylan from people like the executive director of Time's Up. Time's Up. Not to mention the Human Rights Campaign. These are woke organizations meant to hold the powerful to account, working to ruin Lindsay Boylan by, in the case, for example, of HRC, leaking her personnel file, which the HRC president, a former aide of Cuomo's, had. And in the case of Roberta Kaplan of Time's Up, helping the governor in his response to Boylan's allegations. Their first instincts: side with power, attack the women, destroy Lindsay Boylan. And they did try. But then came others. One by one, young women coming forward with similar stories of bullying, inappropriate groping, kissing, fondling, sex talk, and so on. And then the AG, Letitia James, was back again. Yes, Tish James, who definitely wants Andrew Cuomo's job, his defenders are not wrong about that, began another investigation, farmed out to 2 independent investigators, one of whom had gone after Cuomo before. And still more women and witnesses came forward, ones who had never spoken publicly before. An executive assistant who says he groped her behind and then her breast under her blouse. A state trooper whose stomach he allegedly rubbed, among other things. A woman on a rope line whose chest he pressed into repeatedly with his finger. Cuomo, for his part, dismissed it all as overreactions or untruths or misinterpretations. Listen to him yesterday, trying to normalize his decision to touch that female state trooper's stomach.
I got to know her over time, and she's a great professional. And I would sometimes banter with her when we were in the car. We spent a lot of time driving around the state. This female trooper was getting married, and I made some jokes about the negative consequences of married life. I meant it to be humorous. She was offended, and she was right. The trooper also said that in an elevator I touched her back, and when I was walking past her in a doorway, I touched her stomach. Now, I don't recall doing it, but if she said I did it, I believe her. At public events, troopers will often hold doors open or guard the doorways. When I walk past them, I often will give them a grip of the arm, a pat on the face, a touch on the stomach, a slap on the back. It's my way of saying, I see you.
Sure. Women, how many times has your boss rubbed your belly? Men, how many times have you done that to female colleagues? Please. This is what he does. Try to normalize it. And by the way, then blame the women. That's what he did to Janice Dean, to Boylan, to all of the women. Helped not just by the media, but by Time's Up, by critical woke activists, and also by his brother, Chris Cuomo, who, after doing his level best to make the nation love Andrew Cuomo, advised his brother behind the scenes on how to dismiss these women entirely. Without disclosing any of his maneuvering, Chris Cuomo became a political activist, meeting with the governor's staff, lawyers, coming up with a game plan on how to get rid of these pesky charges. We only know this because he got caught. The Washington Post broke the story, and Chris Cuomo went on the air, admitted it, and tried to convince his audience he cares very deeply, that's a quote, about sexual harassment. Now we know he cares so deeply, he actually drafted his brother's public defense. He was part of the same team that smeared these women as pushing cancel culture. Governor Cuomo's team attacked Lindsey Boylan with special vigor. She was number one. She had to go. A woman whose mother, by the way, who was once on food stamps, whose dad was from Queens. He was the son of Irish immigrants. He was a Marine. He served in Desert Storm. That's who Lindsey Boylan comes from. Not anyone with connections, not anyone with family power. Everything Lindsey Boylan earned, she'd earned on her own. And now this woman found herself up against the most powerful man in New York, one of the most powerful in America, and his media star brother. And these two men, born into a family of enormous privilege, connection, and influence, two men who obviously would have none of the success they now enjoy without the Cuomo name, that of their father, who was a 3-term governor of New York, came for Lindsey and the others without one care for the truth. Chris Cuomo needs to be held accountable. This is totally unacceptable behavior. Andrew Cuomo is now rightfully gone. And Lindsey Boylan, Janice Dean, and the other women who came forward are owed a debt of gratitude by all of us.